and the techniques for materialism, or inventing his own narrative. But again, because that doesn't fit with the intellect, and because you're almost deluding yourself, then there will be that conflict, internal conflict within. And people can only live so much with an incongruence with what you have in your head and your life. One of them has to go, right? So if you have a belief as such, if they do not complement each other, either you have to abandon your belief and carry on living the way that you do, or you change your behavior and you go incongruent with your belief. So I think that person will be constantly angst. It's like the term they call it antsy pants, right? Always, you're not settled, you're not content, it's not enough. See, what believing in God does, and knowing that you have an afterlife, and knowing how to live, peace of mind, contentment. What man wants is, well, he doesn't want to be a millionaire. Believe it or not, man doesn't want to be a millionaire, right? He doesn't want the Ferraris, he doesn't want the mansions, he just wants to be content with his existence. Everything else is secondary, right? So when you unlock that and work that out, that is a peace that you have. Look, sometimes you think that the world is against you, but when you center yourself on that fact, you have this tranquility within you. That's what we want. That's what we want as human beings. Unfortunately, with that halfway house, it's not enough. You just need to make that further step. That's what I would say. I think I was in that position. Not so much radical, but sort of confused, like, okay, I'm not that, I'm not this, but then what? What am I? In actual fact, there is no halfway house. That's the point. Either you just live and die, and that's the end of it, it's a brute fact, or there is an afterlife, or there is a mission, you're part of it. That's it.
Assalamualaikum. Yeah, okay. So we have a purpose in life, but why does God create us? I mean, why?
Yeah, I kind of touched on that earlier when I said that because of his mercy, his love, his goodness, out of that expression, he creates us so that we can experience eternal happiness. God is not a selfish God. He's not just content with the being of self, being of happiness. He wants to create us. He created us with a purpose. And to attain that, so this life here is a test, right? It's a journey. So we have a starting point, which is when we're born, and our death is the destination, right? So it's a straight line. But what happens with people is they do this. Oh, that looks nice. We start looking over here, right? And then imagine your time here is material, right? Your time here, you have a finite amount of time. So imagine, put it like this. I had a friend, and we went on holiday many, many years ago, and he had I think he had about £200 or so. And we were going to, where did we go? We went to south of Turkey or something like that. And what he did, before he got there, he spent all his money at duty free, on the airport, buying this, buying that. And when he got there, he had no money left. And I said to him, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your money? The whole point of that money that he saved up was to spend it on his holiday. So in the same way, that's like a microcosm level, right? When we look at our lives, that we spend our time on entertainment, movies, this, that, the other. In actual fact, you're going against the whole reason for why you're here. The destination is for you to prepare for the next world. We worry about capital investment, but what about your investment in the next world? What about the investment in the next world? Right? What if I said to you, do this, and you get £100 million? All you need to do is do X, Y, Z. Who would do that? We would all do that, right? But what we're expecting in the afterlife puts that on a minuscule level. You wouldn't even look at that. If only you knew what was in the next world, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. We wouldn't even be talking, if only you knew. You have just enough information to make that decision, conscious decision, to be part of that, or to ignore it. Just enough there for us to recognize. So So yeah, let's not be fooled, let's not be distracted by the world. Allah in the Quran, He said, do not be fooled, distracted by the dunya. Dunya in Arabic means the world. In the Islamic tradition, we don't believe in asceticism, that is to completely become away from the material world. Live like monks or eat little and so forth, right? To consume little. We have this perfect harmony with the material world. But what does God say in the Quran? He says, do not be dazzled by it. Right? Do not be dazzled. Don't let it take you away from why you are here. It's like giving a diamond ring to someone, and you're looking at it and they're, wow, in all of this ring, and then the person steals their wallet. Yeah? Don't have your wallet stolen in life. Don't have your life stolen by all the material world. Okay?
Sorry, I go back to my question. Does our existence actually start from the day we're born, or do we have a previous life? Because there's something. Once somebody said to me something about how our souls were created a long time ago.
That's a story that I gave in the presentation. That your souls, each and every one of us, and the people that will live or created, our souls are a part of us when we're born. That's when our souls enter us. But we were part of that moment. We were part of that. And that's why that I said that there's a recollection of that moment. We can't quite remember it. We've got amnesia, spiritual amnesia. And what happens is that when we engage in these discussions, when we look at the temporal world, it reminds us of that moment. It's like, when you walk in a shop and the music's playing, and you remember that the time when you listen to that music, right? In the same way, when we talk about existentialist topics, when we talk about life and we're going to die, we jigs that kind of moment in our past. And that's why it's a custom, it's tradition for us to go and visit the graveyard, to remind ourselves. We remember that momentous day that God asked us, who is your Lord? And we all reply. Even Richard Dawkins said, you are my Lord. Yeah, even he didn't have the guts to say, no, you're not my Lord. Even he said, every single one, everyone who professes to say that God doesn't exist, he cannot exist, on that day, he said, you are my Lord. But some of us tend to block it out, right?
Assalamu alaikum. What would you answer?
That's a really hard question. That's beyond me.
What would you answer to people saying that religion itself and believing that there is a hereafter is a self-delusion?
Is a self-delusion. Okay. So we invent a world where there is a possibility of eternal punishment, suffering, and torture for our own delusion. Who's going to invent that, right? Who is going to invent the possibility that you could be in the hellfire? Look, have you read any descriptions about hell? It talks about people having their entire body crushed, burnt, drinking the pus of people, vile pus, and then coming back to life again and having over and over again. Who's going to invent that? Tell me. At least invent a religion where the only option is heaven. Right? Now, I find that ironic. I mean, that kind of analysis only makes sense. It begs the question, i.e. that it assumes that God is unfathomable, is false, one can't maintain a position to believe that God exists, and that religion is man-made. Once you assume that religion is man-made, once you assume that God is man-made, then obviously that's going to be a consequence, that you're going to account for some way. But that begs the question. That's cheating. You have to show that God doesn't exist, and then come to that conclusion. But then I would just say to that person, okay, so what is your life then? You're just going to live and die? They go, yeah. So there's no meaning and purpose? Yeah. So basically, if you killed yourself right now, it would make no difference. They'll say, no, of course it would make a difference. Why? Why would it make a difference if you killed yourself right now? Why would it make a difference? Are you going to be punished? Are you going to miss out on something? What are you going to miss out on? What difference does it make? when you're dead, and you go, you know what? I should have done that. You know, I should have put the dishes in the dishwasher. Are you going to be missing something? No, because you're not there. You're not there. So that's what I would say to someone. When you push, okay, what if you had a friend that said, you know what? I'm going to kill myself. You say, don't be silly. You're young. You've got the rest of your life ahead of you. Really? But quite frankly, we already discussed that whether you live or do not live is the same. We have to be indifferent. So whether you live 10 years or no years is exactly the same. Why? It doesn't make a difference. But it does. There is some kind of anchor there that it does make a difference. What is that? I would, with that person, push them. It's not enough to say God doesn't exist and religion is man-made. He has to answer questions pertaining to his life without God. And what I tend to find is that people get a bit uncomfortable then, because they really are analysing it. But we do lip service. There's so much that God doesn't exist, religion is man-made, X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. We hear this all the time. But when you sit down with someone and get them to really think, my experience with people that don't believe in God, am I talking too much? Stop talking. My theory for people that don't believe in God, my experience rather, are people that do actually believe in God, but they don't like someone telling them how to live their life. It's the rebelling against the father figure sort of thing, right? That's my experience. I could be wrong. But most people that I've spoken to about it, it's not philosophy, it's not about arguments, it's about psychology. It's a rebellion. Do not want someone to tell me how to live my life. But if you don't want that person telling you to live your life, then what else have you got? Well, nothing. Absolute nothing. You live, you die, and the worms eat you. And that's it. What a depressing picture of man. You heard Voltaire. That's all you are. Honestly, if you genuinely believe there is no God, and you genuinely believe that that's all life, you'd be depressed 24/7. And I'll tell you something, you know people that are depressed? Some of them have worked that out. They are not the Matrix. You know those stories that you hear about pop stars? Who was the guy recently, the one who played the Joker? Heath Ledger. Yeah, that's the one. Someone who had it all. You know what people think, scratching their heads? This man had it all. He had it all. He was young. He was handsome. So some people tell me. He was handsome. He was young. He had it all. How could he do it? Why? Well, I've got a sneaky feeling that he actually unlocked the Matrix. There is no point to life. He's being told that there is no God. And what is left? Nothing. Life is depressing. How can you handle it? Seriously, think about a life where there's no beyond. But what is the alternative? That you're immortal. This is a temporal moment. You are here to live. You are content with the idea that you're immortal. But if you don't believe in God, there is no immortality. You just die. And that's it. I can't handle that. I cannot handle that. But I can back it up. Some people say, oh, you're just scared of dying. No. Because I can back it up rationally as well, that God does exist. You see, whether you believe that God exists or not, what you cannot deny is that God brings us eternal contentment with the idea of meaning and purpose. Many atheists concur that if God doesn't exist, then we don't have any meaning and purpose. See, Richard Dawkins said that all that we're here for is to spread our genes, not Levi's, our genes in that sense. What is that? Can you really deal with that? See, anyone who goes around talking about that there is no God, just sit them down, just think about what you're saying. That's what you're saying. It's a price worth paying. Yes.
I was just some people they say if I give up on God, then why God gives up on me?
God never gives up on you. He will give you signs upon signs upon signs upon signs. There's a tradition in the Islamic tradition that said that the Son of Man, even if he had a mountain of sin, that if he repents, God will forgive him. He will be forgiven. He will be forgiven, even if he has sin. God will never give up on you. To the last moment, he will give you signs and signs and signs upon signs. But unfortunately,